Good evening, well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world, because it could be any time of the day. It's myself, Gary Whitaker, here with the well, actually, I say iPace Driver Show. It's the EV Driver Show now, because nobody on this call tonight has got an iPace. Unfortunately, ADD can't join us tonight. He's got some issues he's sorting out. But I'm joined by the excellent Brian, who goes by the moniker EV Odessey on YouTube. And if you've wanted to drive a Kia EV6 or needed to know information about one, Brian's your man. So, Brian, when did you kick off doing these videos?
Well, I started last year. What year is it now? With the pandemic, time's just flown by so quickly. I think I did the first one for my e-Niro sometime in 2020, but not really a lot, probably 4 or 5 videos then. And then I think I started in early December with the EV6. I got the car first week of November, and then I just put a couple of videos up, and they started going crazy. I thought, some people are interested in this. So then during the kind of Christmas break, I was putting out one a day, and the more I fed the YouTube monster, the more crazy it got.
There certainly is a lot of interest in the car now. The viewers of the show will know by now that I've also now got an EV6, GT Line S all-wheel drive, and my first 2 videos on that have just gone absolutely crazy. I mean, the iPace you'd think would be a popular car, but my iPace videos never got the sort of traction that these EV6 ones are getting. It's like a put magic word into the, as you say, YouTube monster, and away it goes.
Yeah. I always wanted an iPace before the EV6, but I could never afford one.
I think that's the thing. I think the you could some people describe the EV6 as a poor man's iPace, but I don't really see that. They're different cars, but there's a lot of similarities. Certainly design wise, there's an awful lot of similarities. I get up in the mornings and walk out to the car now, and I sometimes forget it's the EV6 and still think it's the iPace.
Yeah, it's definitely some inspiration being taken from that, but then there's a lot of inspiration taken from lots of different cars in the EV6 and lots of sci-fi references. If you ever watch Star Trek Next Generation, there's lots of things from the Starfleet badge on the back lights to the back light that curves across. That was the back of an old Ferengi ship. And then you've got the center console, which it kind of bends up at the end, like a ramp, like a ski lift. If you look at the consoles on Star Trek Next Generation that Picard sits in, there's one of those just there. So they pitched that. And then you've got the graphics on the main screen. The way it points up, if you look in the old engine room, the engine core used to be like that. So all of these design points have been nicked, borrowed. So people say it's sci-fi, it's mostly Star Trek. And then you've got the sound design, the actual sound design when you go into warp. I mean, when you have it turned on, that's just nicked off the Enterprise D. So
it definitely sounds like
as a Trekkie, it's like my flipping wet dream.
I mean, the actual sound design is interesting because it's almost identical to the one which is on the iPace as well, and not surprisingly because it's actually driven by Meridian, obviously both Meridian sound systems, which is interesting. And of course, we should point out that's only available if you've got the Meridian sound system, which is only on the higher model. EV6 and iPace for that matter. But yeah, it's definitely interesting that all those references, but because it's a very futuristic car. I mean, I compare it again with the iPace, and people get asked me to have my opinion of what the EV6 and the iPace are like, and there is a lot of similarities. Is it what gets me on the EV6 is the space inside. I mean, it's not that much longer than the iPace. It's only a very small amount longer, and it's narrower. Yet it seems to be much bigger inside the iPace in terms of, certainly back seat room, the space you've got, the leg room there. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Compared to the Nero, there's a hell of a lot more space.
Yeah, and the boot space is good as well. I mean, the iPace, you'd think it'd be very similar to the iPace. It's similar depth and height, because that's one of the things. Obviously, the depth is brilliant on the EV6, but the length of it is much bigger, and you can get a lot more in there. I liked your trick of how you got your shopping bags in.
Well, I store cases of beer when I go up the brewery, the local backyard brewery. They fit in there long ways when I'm shopping at Christmas. So just lift that up, it just comes in.
So that's the false floor effectively. You could lift up and
you had the same thing in the Nero. To be fair, that's why I just learned it from that. And I had the Nero for a year before I realised you could stow the parcel shelf in there as well. It's got the same trick along the bottom.
That's really good. I mean, it's interesting because the iPace has got sort of kind of full size floor as well, but it wasn't anywhere as near as useful space as this one has got.
Yeah.
And I know one of the complaints, one of the things I said on my initial test drive was that it was a struggle to get the charging cable or to see where the charging cable would fit because that big bag. But once you take it out of the bag, it does actually fit under that space or in the front, which is tiny front, but it does actually fit in there.
But your front is tiny, mine's not.
Yeah, because you're rear-wheel drive, aren't you? So you've got bigger front than I've got.
There's still loads of stuff under there. You think there'd be nothing there underneath that front when you take it out? It's just shed loads of gubbins. You just wonder what it all does, but it's all doing something. So yeah. I mean, there's not as much space in these cars as because they're cab forward design, and the idea of the cabin actually being under the motor space. You don't get as much space in there as you perhaps think you were. And I think a lot of people think back to things like the original Tesla Model S, which had a huge trunk because it had hardly anything under there at all. It was basically the skateboard design, and everything was under there. And then the seat was slightly further back, and quite a long bonnet on those cars comparatively, with much chunkier, much shorter bonnets now. But yeah, I mean, I think the interesting, I mean, obviously you're on the wheel drive, which is slightly slower than my all drive when it's in sport mode, but equivalent when it's in eco mode, because the clever thing on my one, it decouples that front drive. This decoupling of the gears is really clever. There's not many cars which have EVs which have gears at all, for that matter. But to actually be able to decouple the front drive when you don't need it, or when you're in eco and you want to save power. So basically, it's not quite as good as yours, I don't think, on economy, but it's pretty close. And I think you do get some minor loss with decoupling. But yeah, I mean, it's really impressive that you can do that. And of course, on mine, it will switch to all-wheel drive if you put your foot down in normal mode, and if you got in sport, it's in forward all the time, and it's quick. I mean, I don't really notice the difference between it and the iPace. And the iPace is slightly on paper is slightly quicker, but not noticeably. Well,
and certainly,
I wouldn't pay the extra £3,000. I'm just tight. £48 enough for the most expensive car I ever bought. So.
Yeah, well, actually, because mine's contract hire, it actually made very little difference. What really surprised me is when I added the heat pump to the contract hire, the price actually went down on the monthly cost, which is obviously to do with residuals, because everything, obviously, if you contract hire, all you're paying for is the depreciation effectively. So if the contract hire company thinks that with a heat pump it's going to depreciate less, you end up paying less payments. So that was quite a surprise. So that made it a no-brainer to have the heat pump on it as well. Although obviously it's a questionable thing in the UK whether you need it, but.
Well, for every person who says you don't need it, there's another one that says, "Oh, I don't need it."
I wouldn't do it without. I mean, certainly most cars I would not go without. Electric cars I wouldn't go without heat pumps. So I think it should make a difference. I guess we can't let the EV6 go without talking about heating issues, because that's been the bane of the EV6's life up to now. And you suffered as much as anybody else.
I've not suffered as bad as some users of it. The heater gates, the whole heater gate thing. People who were just getting heat or no heat, and it would just pack up during the middle of driving on long distance, and I've not had that. I get spurious heat appearing out of nowhere for no good reason when the climate's not turned on. It's creeping up for the heat events, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. So I can understand why, because the heat button's not on.
Well, I guess so. Might be the heat pump, because from what I can work out, the heat light doesn't come on when the heat pump's operating.
Well, I'm not supposed to have a heat pump
Ah, right. Yes. Well, then you have air conditioning then warming you up. Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, the whole heating system is a little bit oddly
Well,
designed.
it doesn't work like normal climate where you set it to the temperature and it just does its thing. You seem to have to intervene and put heat on, don't you? So unless I'm doing it wrong, but
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that was the case, but I've seemed to have actually got it working with auto now. If I set it to
yeah.
23 degrees and do it on one or two level auto climate, then I seem to get the temperature I want.
Well, I still got to do a video on it. You've got so many flipping auto levels. You've got auto fan, you've got auto climate with the bars.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's another auto in there somewhere as well. So.
Auto dehumidifier, isn't there as well? So.
Yeah. Well, I have that on as well.
Yeah, I mean, it works. I mean, I don't know if mine works because I've got the heat pump. Because you think, how did they set this up? Did they design it to work with the heat pump, and therefore, when you haven't got a heat pump, it's less efficient or it doesn't work as well? And of course, as we were mentioning off air in Korea, they haven't got the heat button. They've got so on their control because they've got this. It's replaced by
air filter. Yeah,
air filter.
Was it a blue button?
Yeah. So
yeah.
So they obviously don't need heat in Korea, even though it's colder sometimes over there than it is here. So it's
you've been watching the same Korean subtitled videos that are not subtitles; they're complete Korean. So
yeah,
I was always a fan of Korean horror movies. Anyway, so they were the best.
I mean, some great videos. Some of the I mean, they seem to go camping every weekend, don't they? And camp out their cars, which seems to be the done thing. I mean, it's to the point you can actually get a bed for the back of your EV6 in Korea as one of the spare parts. Although I know the manual actually says don't sleep in your car.
So, hey, really? They're selling you a bloody double bed.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if that's left over from the petrol diesel manuals, because obviously that would be a risk to do. But yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, that was obviously a big issue. Heatergate was a major issue for very early cars because they had the problem with the PTC heater part, the inverter, which was actually faulty and had to be replaced in some of the cars. Batch of those, and then the software update to sort it out. And that's pretty much sorted for most people. But the thing which still isn't sorted is the remote heating. I loved your workaround for that. That's really useful to turn the car on remotely. But
that's just come out of playing with. When I would turn on the to move the car back and forth, you would hear the heater come on. If you'd left it on, I thought, why is the heater on? Oh, that's a useful feature.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think I'll probably use that feature more than I will the sort of remote control of the car, because I haven't really got much of a use for that. Garage, maybe getting it out of garage, but yeah, the remote heat is very useful to be able to do.
I've still got to do a video on the alternate auto park method where you're outside the car and pressing the keys.
Yeah,
someone's dared me to do it. You really going to trust it to do it?
Well, is that going to be as epic as your auto park series?
Well, I left all 9 attempts in because it seemed more epic than just.
What's epic? Well, I think that's the same with all cars. I mean, I've never seen an auto park which works particularly well on any car. I think they get better at it now, but you think also, if you think about all the difficulties they have in actually sorting that out, with all the possibilities that it's trying to work its way around, you can see why it's restricted to good scenarios to work. I mean, that auto hold thing was just a real gotcha, really, wasn't it? It's not obvious that at all. You need to.
Well, I got so used to driving these cars, with in automatic mode, that I wasn't even looking at the screen, paying attention. You must press the foot brake.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without being used to it, I just found it difficult to do. So I got auto hold, yes.
Yeah.
I don't care if the brakes go.
Yeah, that works fine. And then it is fully automatic as well, isn't it?
Well, you also turn the car off. It puts the handbrake on as well when you shut down. Just take it off. And so it's one less thing to do. So it was a good feature on the Nero once I discovered it, because I didn't know about it at first.
I think that auto on the EV6 auto hold is actually a quite well done feature, probably the general key, I think. So some of the cars I've been driven on, we've got MG ZS EV we have on test here, and that actually, if you have put it on auto hold, is really difficult to manoeuvre. It becomes virtually, because it jerks off and on. It's very, so you can sort of lurch forward quite a bit and then lurch back a bit quite a bit when you start down. So it's definitely a lot better on the EV6, and I tend to have auto hold on all the time now. Which is really good. I mean, the app is interesting, isn't it? Because I know people complain how unreliable the app is, but
I think it's okay. It's not actually the app; it's the infrastructure in the background. It's the servers going up and down. They don't even know they're going up and down. But having worked in IT for a long time before I packed it in.
Yeah, well, people that would also know I work in app design, so I know a bit about apps. But it's interesting. I mean, it's certainly way better than the standard 2 iPace apps, because they actually end up with 2 versions of their app.
I've noticed the Americans have got a different thing altogether. It looks
they've
nothing
got
like ours.
Yeah, different app, different infrastructure. It doesn't work in Canada, which is causing people across the border regularly a lot of issues.
Yeah, I saw somebody moaning about that.
Yeah, I mean, at least ours does go roaming throughout the whole of Europe, which is a good thing as well. I mean, the API must be available for the Kia system, because I know there's some third-party software which actually uses it. So there's probably an option for a third-party.
Somebody did some Alexa links, and you could interrogate it and pull data back. But I don't think it was available in the UK. I read it on one of the forums.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, certainly some of the third-party tooling is able to read it. So I think that there'll be things coming along. I mean, we had on the iPace, we had a couple of brilliant apps which have been written for the Android for iOS, which are way better than the normal standard apps. So I think you could see that coming. I mean, there are a few gotchas in the app, and I'm not sure if they're infrastructure or not, with things like the units changing all the time. You're having to refresh to get back to Mars. I mean, it's obviously
that was going on since the Nero days.
I know. Another that's been around for a very long time. It doesn't sound like they fixed or changed things on the app particularly quickly, which is a shame. But the whole remote preheating on that is a bit. It's unfortunate. I mean, we talked about the workaround, but the fact that it doesn't actually heat up for a lot of people, and doesn't work unless it's plugged in.
I'm starting to wonder if they got a wiring loom with the wires wired up wrong, because there were people who were detecting the battery heater being put on when you did a remote preheat. Put your dongle in to monitor, so the battery heater was being set instead of the car heater. So
maybe something's wired up incorrectly, or that'll be a fix they'll be able to do fairly quickly if that's the case. But, I mean, that's one thing I've been impressed with, the service I've got in terms of getting the updates in, and how quickly they've actually been, because coming from the Jaguar world where they announce something's faulty and then it takes about 6 months to actually get it out there to fix it. Certainly turning around the repairs relatively quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm still waiting for mine. So I rang again on Friday, and they still haven't got the alarm, and they still haven't got the wiring loom to do those 2 things. So
I guess the parts
are
are just a general issue, aren't they? I mean, and that's part of the reason mine took so long to actually get. I mean, I've been teasing people a long time about what my new car was going to be, because I didn't actually know if I was going to get it in the end, because the company was getting a bit fed up with the time delays on things getting set up, and part of that was the heating issue, because that had to be sorted out on mine because of one of the early batches, but also the tow bar, which was a back order item, and that took forever to come in.
So have you got that now?
Yeah, I've got that now. So that was part of it.
Does that fold down underneath?
No, it doesn't fold out. No. It's detachable. The electrical connector does fold up, which is quite neat, and the actual whole unit is pretty neat. It's just a plug-in unit underneath, which has got a cover on it to take out. It just means you've got to store it somewhere, which is a bit of a pain. It's nice of it. If it was, as you say, folds up, or electric would have been even nicer. But I know they've got that on some of the other Kia models, but they just didn't have the space for that with the battery pack being as big as it is, and that to put in.
I've seen the front of the battery pack today when I had the frunk out. If you have the frunk out, you can look down, you can see the edge of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, what's what's really impressed me, I guess, I mean, and I always knew I was getting longer range, further range than the iPace. Not hugely longer, because I mean, I'm certainly, as with anything, you never get anywhere near WLTP, and with driving mine maybe a little bit more on all-wheel drive than rear-wheel drive only. I haven't been getting anywhere near, because you get
the Nero, you did get your WLTP in the summer anyway. I mean, 320 is the best I had out of it. Yeah.
Well, I'll be interested to see what this comes up in the summer, because obviously summer always makes a huge difference. And when you get to plus 20 temperatures, you really do make a difference, because I mean, you can certainly see how much the heating and cooling system has an effect on the EV6. It's really dramatic in terms of the range it uses. But I mean, I've been getting 250, 260 off a full charge, so I'm happy with that.
That's where I currently am as well. Yeah, but I can see it's gradually creeping back up. My wife Zoe never goes below 4 miles a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
All the way for the year. So that's not bad for efficiency either. But it's
I mean, some of the shots I've seen, yours seems to be about 3, doesn't it? 3.1, somewhere around there.
I think the last journey I did, it was 3.9.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a lot.
Weekends. Yeah.
I mean, the best I've seen is 3.1 on mine, and most time I'm hovering around 2.5, 2.6. But then again, I do my normal journey profile is probably the worst thing you can do for an EV. I've got sort of up onto a rapid 70 mile an hour, then straight down and short 1 mile journey. It's not like
well, this is like I do a bit of local, then go on the motorway, and then my brother's in Kidderminster, so I go over this every few weeks, and that's when I tend to get the good mileage. And we're off to Llandudno in a few weeks for a few days, so that's a good little journey to try it out on.
The charging deserts of Wales.
Well, it's Lidl at Llandudno Junction, or Llandudno Junction. So I've been there with the Nero, and I think there are pod point 50 kilowatts there. And if you have to buy something in the shop, or they'll fine you.
Yeah. Well, I use my local Lidl. I've actually used it with the EV6 as well, so that was good to see it. That's the first time I've actually seen 50 kilowatts on that charger, and the iPace was always about 32, 53.
It's consistently I use the Instavolt at KFC, and that's the main one around here. The pod point at Tesco's 50 kilowatts never worked. It's always broken. It's terrible. I'd happily pay, sometimes when I need to, but I've even sent it to them on Twitter. I'm sorry, we're looking at it now. It appears for a day and it's broken again.
Yeah. But ours is pretty reliable, fortunately, so that's quite good. It's interesting. I mean, what was interesting, I tried to start it using the Kia Charge app, because it says it can be started through that, and it didn't want to start, so I just reverted back to the pod point app. But yeah, I mean, I have used the Kia Charge card on Ionity, which is good to see. That worked well.
Well, I'm waiting for Stafford so I can
play with that.
I mean, I've got the card, which is just wasting away. Well, I don't do the miles.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, we've got Ionity here, obviously in Peterborough, so I've been able to use that, and that's actually my cheapest charge I can do around here, which sounds crazy, but using the Kia card,
the discount,
discount,
I can imagine,
although I did have an issue with that discount, because I got the Ionity discount, but I didn't get the Kia Charge, the actual Charge Plus discount initially, because although I was a pre-order and I should have got that, it wasn't registered on my purchase.
So I'm getting the invoices, and it's got all the lines, but they're all zero because I'm not used to it. So
well, that's what I'm hoping they'll sort out. I mean, they have said they're going to sort it out, but I think it was because I changed email addresses halfway through, because I used my personal email address for the previous res, and then it went on to the company. But I mean, it's fine. They say they're going to honour that. So
I'm not been able to find a complete list of Kia charge points. I'm not 100%. Who's in there? I know obviously Ionity.
Ionity, Osprey are in there.
Osprey in there, so I could do that as well to Osprey next time I go and visit the Osprey once they fixed it.
And it's significantly cheaper than the Osprey price rise at the moment, so that's worth doing.
No, I'm waiting for 20 degrees, and I'll go back over there, and I'll do my return of the charging video at Osprey.
On the Kempower ones. As if you can find one of them working at the moment, because unfortunately I've heard those chip chargers have been vandalised. So
yeah, some of them were working, but I think the screens are smashed from vandals. They just had a go at them. It's terrible.
such a shame.
Yeah.
To feel sorry for the Osprey, like they put so much effort into this stuff, but yeah, it's unfortunately I think there's going to be a more and more tempting target on these charges for that sort of undesirables. It was interesting, obviously, when I had that interview with him from Osprey. One of the things he pointed out was the fact that actually having lights above the chargers makes them a more desirable place for people to hang out, and you may not get the people you want hanging out around them.
Well, it's like when kids, when I was growing up, we'd hang out at McDonald's and just meet up there and just congregate. So it's if you're at a Costa, it's probably
Costa's there as well.
Making.
Unfortunately, but hopefully they get back up and running soon. I mean, no Campo on the case, so hopefully that will get sorted out and you'll be able to go and charge there.
It's still a bit of a jaunt over there, but just if I'm going that way, I'll go and have a look.
Yeah, well, I pop over there occasionally, and we could maybe meet up at some point at that direction, or Stafford when we get the.
Yeah, we must do Stafford.
Yeah,
I can't really justify coming all the way to Peterborough.
Yeah. Well, the next charging point I'm going to try testing it on is grid serve at Braintree, because we've got to meet up out there with some of the old iPace owners. So I'll just show them.
That's the original new grid serve, the one that's fully charged and all that.
Yeah. And then the Norwich one's opening fairly shortly, and I've got an invite to that as well. So hopefully one of those I'll be able to try out their 350 kilowatt and see what we get. So obviously at the moment with the temperature, it's going to take a while for that pack to warm up. And that's what I certainly found at Ionity. It took so long for the pack to warm up to get up to high speed. By the time I got to that high speed, I was at a high starting state of charge. And it's still surprisingly fast. I mean, I don't joke, Twitter. The first time I've ever recorded my weekly podcast actually in the car, and I started charging at the start of the podcast, and by the end of the podcast I was 100%, and I started about 23%. So it was pretty impressive to do that fully to 100% in less than an hour. I think that's I mean, certainly no way I would have done it in the iPace. It'd been almost like 2 hours.
I wouldn't have done that in the E-Nero. I mean, it tops out at about 70 something. I think if you're lucky.
Yeah. I mean, it's great when you get that, and certainly. That's the one thing I'd really. I mean, you don't get, without some sort of pre-battery heating, you're not going to get the 230s, the 250 kilowatts that they're talking about anytime soon. I mean, you're going to have to be in 30-degree temperatures out there to be able to get the battery up to that sort of temperature realistically. But it's still fast. It's way faster. It's way faster than I actually want half the time on breaks.
You want time to drink coffee, don't you?
There's I mentioned this on my other video, but there's a brilliant video out there by someone out in Australia where they do a trip from Sydney to Melbourne, or Melbourne to Sydney. I can't remember which way around it is, and they show basically doing little 10-minute charge stops, just so run it down low, charge it up to midway, and then down low again, and then they're stopping 4 or 5 times, but it's just a really nice quick stop. That's all. Then they get back on the road again. And
so it's like a splash and dash in Formula 1.
Yeah, exactly. But they're still driving 2 hours before they have that splash and dash. So it's perfect, I think. And they basically said that they arrived far more relaxed than they'd ever done that journey before, and were only about 30 or 40 minutes slower than the petrol car, which was trying to do it all in effectively one run with one stop. So yeah, it was interesting to see that. So that was with an Ionic, not EV6, of course, but basically same principle. So I think it's an interesting charge curve, and I think it will only get better. I think that I'm hearing rumours that they're looking at tweaking it a bit, maybe changing the way that the heating operation works. But yeah, I mean, I know certainly we've heard rumours of this preheat update coming, navigate and to charging heat before you get there.
Well, the Ionic app had it appear for a day in Europe and then disappear, the actual button on the phone. So it's like it's tested and turned back off. So
is it actually a button to say I need to preheat the battery, or is it a button saying navigate?
It appeared on the app, on the remote or the status window. I'd have to look back again.
Yeah,
It's out there somewhere.
it's an interesting
Yeah.
concept. I mean, everybody else has done it, like Tesla and Polestar have done it as basically navigate to once you start navigating to a charger, you can say you want to preheat before you get to that charger. Which is a good way of doing it. I mean, in some ways, it'd be nice to actually have a button say preheat the battery now, because if you're going to a local charger you don't navigate to, that would be a nice thing to sort of do. I mean, it's still going to take a little while. They don't heat up that quickly with the battery heater. I mean, I monitored it, and it sort of took 15 minutes before it was up to the right sort of temperature to charge fast on. When I mean, admittedly, the day was particularly cold that day. It was sub-zero temperatures, but it still takes a while to warm up, so you'd have to sort of be able to pre-plan a bit to get it to work.
So, are you loving this car?
I do. Yeah.
I
mean, I love the I-Pace as well. I mean, but I've missed the I-Pace less than I thought I would. I think that's a really good way of phrasing it, and certainly haven't missed the I-Pace 20k's worth. Which is the sort of 20 to 30k almost actually difference in price. Although that's less of a difference when you actually look at the contract hire rates. It wouldn't have been that much difference, but also I just couldn't have got on the I-Pace some of the features I've got on the EV6, and they're really good, and the advantages are just there. I mean, the other big advantage of the EV6 is it goes further than my I-Pace with a smaller battery, so it's costing less.
Yeah.
Which is a fact people don't always think about. I mean, that if you can get a smaller battery but go reasonable distance, that's going to cost you a lot less money potentially. I mean, it's roughly 10 kilowatt difference in the battery size. So that's on some of these chargers now. That's a fiver. So yeah, I mean,
which is nothing compared to petrol and diesel prices.
No, at the moment, I know, but even so, I mean, going forward, I think obviously energy prices are going to go up. We can't. We're still seeing those rise, and artificially, of course, because obviously the price of wind and air and sun hasn't gone up, and that's a lot of our.
They need to fix the formula and unbind it from the rest of the market, because everybody should be going through renewables and just avoiding the rest of it. And the rest will drop in price eventually. But I mean, people, they don't want it.
I think if there was a realistic cost there and not surcharges for the green energy or the electricity, that would make a huge difference to how it works. But
that's all in the standing charge.
Yeah. But anyway, that's I mean, certainly my the home energy bills are skyrocketed. So
have you not got solar?
I have, unfortunately, here we haven't got solar yet. I mean, it's something I'm really want to bring in on here. There's been a few issues with getting it in. So
22 kilowatts generated today in March. That's bonkers. So
that's great.
Wife's car's nearly full, and mine could be nearly full.
I mean, it makes so much sense to have solar if you've got an EV. I just so got to try and get round the councils and things.
Well, we were just exporting most of it back up the line for an electric car. I mean, the hot water would be constantly hot, and now we're having to balance it, and because it's both. My wife packed in work last year, and she might go back, and I'm mostly retired, but not the pensioner from West Midlands, as some people keep on calling me on the Facebook group.
The Facebook group.
I'm not collecting my pension yet. I just draw down when I need to. That doesn't make me a pensioner. I think he's a victim of auto translate.
My practical friend.
You'll see me taking the front out with my socket set on Friday. My very practical friend.
I like that one. So it's certainly interesting to see how that all hangs together. The other thing I was quite impressed with on the EV6 is actually the charge location, because compared to the I-Pace, I mean, there's so many chargers I can actually now charge at, which I couldn't charge at before.
But isn't it on the wrong side for Teslas? So
it is on the wrong side for Tesla chargers, yeah, which is a shame. They could have put it on the other side, would have been better.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually, there's a charger, an Osprey charger near me, which I've never been able to charge on because the cable's the wrong side for the iPace, and it just would not have stretched. And it's still the wrong size for the EV6, but it does reach just. So that's definitely made a huge difference. The other thing I really like is that button to cancel the time charging, because that was always a nightmare on the iPace, because you had to turn the iPace off and wait for the screen to pop up saying do you want your time charging or not, and then tap it or not.
Yeah,
and just have the
so
button.
there was that button was a mystery for ages. People, what the hell does that button do? And then it came out, hold schedule.
Yeah. But I think the fact it says hold on it, people think they have to press and hold it. Hold the schedule. But I mean, it works really well, and it definitely, and that makes it so much easier for me to have my time charging set up, which does work. At least that bit works really well, because unfortunately,
you're an octopus or something.
I'm an octopus, yeah. So
well, I'm just on their normal variable tariff.
Yeah.
Well,
with the
solar,
they
haven't got around to putting the smart meters in, but I might be tempted in winter when we don't get much solar. But
well, I mean, if you've got battery, it's really good, because you can obviously offset.
But
do it that way.
That's something else we need, a battery.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that time charging is so much better than the iPace version of time charging. It just, I mean, the fact you can actually.
I thought it was clunky. I mean, it just seemed long-winded to me. Can I just set the time I want and how long?
Yeah.
And then I have to go through it and figure out.
None of them do actually do that. So I mean, the iPace, it was a bit hit and miss if it actually even obey what you wanted it to do. But at least on the EV6, it tells you whether you want to go only in the hours you've set, or you want to prioritise the hours you've set.
Well, there are new rules. There are new rules and regulations coming in with new chargers. Well, they have set a random start time. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So you could be pushed out of your normal cheap rate window and could go over half an hour.
That's going to be fun. But then again, those chargers have got to cope with that and actually work. So it's going to be interesting to do that. But at least with the EV6, it's obvious what's going on. Whereas the iPace, it's always in that sort of like preferred charging thing, and it only does it if it can't get you. It always assumes it needs to get you 100% when you're leaving as well, which is a pain. At least on the EV6.
You can set it, and I only learned all this from making the videos, and I don't even know if I put that one up. I can't remember. I must have put it up. I've done so many, I can't remember.
So I put the time charging on, but it was interesting. I tested this. I must do a video on this as well. You can, if you set it to limit the charge to 80%, it will actually time charge to 80% in that window if it can. So rather than looking to go to 100%.
And the time expands if you change the parameters. It just figures it out. I suppose. That
definitely works well. It's just to say, it's a shame the preheat doesn't work quite as well with it, but.
Well, the scheduled or the remote on demand, none of it just blows cold no matter what.
It blows cold whatever you try. I did actually get some heat on it, but it had to be plugged in, and it had to be done on the controls in the car. That was the only way I ever got it to work, was actually put time charging on in the car, and have it plugged in. I mean, the fact that you can only schedule preheat when it's plugged in is also.
I
mean, with the iPace.
My wife Zoe, you can just set the time.
And that's the normal way of work, because I only charge once a week normally on my normal day trips, because I said they're only miles each day travel. So and I want it in a nice car, nice and warm before I get into that thing. So I don't want to have to plug it in to do that. But it seems an unnecessary restriction that I'm sure. A reason somewhere for it, but hopefully these things will get sorted out and eventually. There's enough people moaning about them that people seem to know about it.
Well, I was expecting another software update, or I don't know whether it's going to come over the air or whether it's still going to be a download. I check every day.
Because you've now got the over the air sharing on your screen. I haven't done that latest update, which gives me that yet. So
Well, I had that from the January update, which was up for a couple of days and then disappeared. So there's there's no value to it if it's not turned on at there. And that's
that's all about the infrastructure again, isn't it? How they've done that. Whether they actually do that, but it'd be great. I mean, that's one of the nice things in the iPads, getting the occasional updates popping up, and you can actually process them and work out. I mean,
I'm hoping they'll split it into components, because if you unload the gzip files, and you can see there's all components for each module. So they probably would just split it down instead of leaving it all in a great big humongous zip file.
One would hope, because there'd be a long download, one update otherwise. But so, I mean, we'll see. Once they start doing it, and I don't. I mean, it took Jaguar a long time to get the over-the-air updates working for the iPads. I mean, it was almost a year before I got those on the iPads when I first had the iPads. So it's not an easy thing to set up the infrastructure.
The Nero was promised in 2020 by the dealer, and then it never appeared. And then it'll be next year. No, it'll be next year. That is 2 years later.
The contacts I've got Kia say they're apparently waiting on Hyundai to do it. So once they've sorted it out, that should be good.
They're probably all piggybacking on the same infrastructure.
Yeah, well, you guess they would do, wouldn't they? I mean, it's all part of the same group.
Yeah, and the websites look like white label versions. When you go into Hyundai or Kia, it's the same structure and everything. Sure,
that's what it is, and obviously we know the actual ICE unit on both our car and the Ioniq's the same, basically under the skin. So it's just some minor branding stuff, but
So on your iPads, on the Meridian sound design, could you actually upload sounds to it?
No, you couldn't.
No.
There was talk about that very early on, that they were going to do, but they never actually did do that. I think it has one less than the Kia's got. The types of
there are mentions of VSS upload on in engineering mode, but no one's been able to figure out the format or whatever. And then someone on one of the forums, the EV6 forums, was suggesting that this new sound design app is to create an EV6 sounds. And I thought, no, I don't think it is. I tried to download it onto the PC, and the link's dead. So
I've seen the video for it, but that's
I've seen the advert and the video, and it's just a very basic synth, I think. So but I don't think there is a way to get those sounds onto the EV6.
No, I don't think so. Not at the moment, anyway.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, the other thing with the whole Meridian sound system is the number of people who complain about the quality of it, and it sounds great to me.
It's people who are looking for big booming bass and too much. It's actually about clarity. I've noticed amazing clarity in FLAC files, uncompressed files, that I'm hearing things I've never heard in my life in those tracks before. And people aren't appreciating that. I just think it's got to be.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I feel about it as well. I mean, I've heard this conversation on the iPads as well, because obviously I had Meridian sound system, and exactly the same conversation just come out. And I have to say, I think the EV6 implementation is actually slightly better than the iPads version. Just ever so slightly. I think
I think the subwoofer under the back floor is a bit muffly. If you actually open that flap up, you can hear more bass.
You get really good bass. But I mean, that's probably the only weakness I think about Power Delivery. But then again, having it in sidewall of the back isn't really much better, to be honest. I think it depends what you load on top of it, of course.
Well, the Nero had it in the side, on the left hand side of the back in the boots. Or the right hand side. I can't remember now.
But I mean, it definitely makes a difference. I mean, there is a bit. I think you can adjust it reasonably well. I mean, I think if you do, as you say, if you open it up, you can get enough bass room to satisfy most people. But and the clarity is just brilliant. I'd say listening clarity, and I think the placement is better. I think the intelligent audio, whatever they call it, compared to the surround that they had in the iPads, which is a little bit artificial in places, it's much better.
I haven't figured out where all the speakers are yet.
They're all over the place.
They're like 20-something speakers.
Yeah, they are. There's a speaker there. Speaker there.
I still keep on finding bits of tear off, you know, the plastic covers.
Oh yeah,
when it
that
comes
could be actually, because I mean, I normally expect them to do a pre-inspection that all those things get taken off, and they were all still left on. Every single one of my bits of tear off plastic was still in place. But, yeah, that's the they get, but it's kept that black gloss looking nice.
Well, someone said, you know, the heater and entertainment bottom display panel that switches, switch mode one. Someone was saying my plastic was left on that. It's not. I'm trying peeling it off. Is he winding me up to try and make me peel off something I couldn't peel off? Probably. I can't get it off.
That's the one bit I haven't got any plastic on. So
he said it should be a shiny finish, but it's a dull finish. So
yeah, mine's dull as well. So
wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that the low spec in some markets that they actually have a matte finish to the bits you've got the black gloss on.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting, because some people seem to prefer that to the black gloss. I mean, there's a lot of anti-black gloss stuff, but I mean, I always think people sort of say makes it look cheap. There was more black gloss in my eyepiece than there was in the Kia.
But the Nero had chrome instead.
Yeah,
people are against chrome sometimes.
Yeah, it's also personal taste, isn't it? I do like the interior of the EV6. I mean, it's as you say, very Star Trek, very spaceship. It's definitely
everybody I've taken into that car has just been blown away by it, especially when it goes into its warp noises.
Yeah. Well, I've got that turned off, but that's because I like quietness when I'm driving my EVs.
Yeah.
Especially if I can listen to that music system. So it was that cloud.
Have you had to wash it yet?
I'm about to do that actually this weekend.
It's the black gloss along the doors that absolutely gets coated with everything.
Yeah.
And then you've got like an integrated wheel arch, which is in the back doors.
Yeah.
It's like a plastic bit that's absolutely covered all the time. I can imagine if you're on the motorway a few times, it's coated.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I'm hoping. Sorry,
the back window I don't find too bad. That tends to stay clear.
But I've not. I mean, actually, that's better. So similar design as the I-Pace with the airflow at the top. And the I-Pace used to get actually worse than the EV6 does. The EV6 tends to stay a lot clearer, which is good.
But when I was a lad, all saloon cars had no wiper on the back.
Yep, so. Absolutely. Same here. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be it's only a new thing, isn't it? I mean, it used to be. Again, it's the aerodynamics. You never needed a rear wiper for saloons because of well, most saloons. I mean, no, the Ioniq can definitely do with a rear wiper. That design of that doesn't really work for not having one. But EV6 is fine. We're fine with that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because I put air glide treatment on mine. I should have videoed actually. I didn't video it because it's really easy to apply that stuff. And that's a bonded coat, but that's kind of like I describe it as Rain X for paint, because it makes everything, you can just literally wipe stuff off when you do it. You don't need wash off dirt.
I know Bob with these ceramic coatings. I think it's going to get scratched. It's going to get scratched. It ain't going to stop it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't do it really for the sort of display. My reason I do it actually, because it's only about 40 quid for this thing, is it does actually make a difference on the drag on the car. I mean, it's used on aircraft. It's used on aircraft to increase fuel economy, basically by making them slip through the air better. And it does. And I did a test on the I-Pace, and it actually made about 1% difference on the fuel on the power usage. So I think it's definitely worth trying anyway. Not that it's actually to be working very well compared to yours. You're definitely doing better than me on economy at the moment.
Well, that's because I'm mostly potter around local. I only use it at weekends. I mean, we take the dog out in Capscar, so why waste mine? You know. But I do like to drive it, and if we go to Lichfield on a Sunday, then it always comes out. We go visiting long distances, it comes out. So
I mean, it's a great thing. I mentioned on my initial test drive. It's just a car you can just leap in and drive. You don't really have to think about anything. You just switch on, start moving. I think I think that's really shown by the simplicity of the foot buttons, where it's got plus or minus. I think that's good. Not brake and accelerator. Plus or minus and forward and back. That's all we need.
Despite the niggles, it's a great car, and
it is.
I'll never give it back.
I think that's the same. I mean, obviously, I keep reverting back to iPace because that's what I've been familiar with for so long. But it's a very similar story. The iPace, the early iPaces had huge numbers of niggles on them. Real issues, and they got resolved over time. I think the EV6 niggles are going to get resolved a lot quicker than the iPace ones ever did, because we were still suffering with some of those a year and a half in. I suspect that I doubt that's going to be the case with the EV6. So the app changes may take a while, but yeah, I mean, it's such a nice car to drive, it really is, and it's a good driver's car. That's the thing I like. You go around the twisty narrow roads around here. It's lovely to do that. I think the only thing I do find negative going back, and it goes back to the video you've just done, compared to my iPace, is the lights. I think the lights are great on the EV6. They're really good compared to a lot of cars. They're way better than a lot of cars. But they're just not as good as my iPace ones were. And the iPace Adaptive had more segments than the EV6 had got, and was able to switch better, quicker, and was definitely brighter when it was on 4B. But you
are paying a lot more money.
You are. I mean,
some commenter on one of my videos was slagging off the bezel on the EV6. Why does it need such a big bezel around that? Well, actually, you can't even see the bezel. It's the way they designed it, because it's covered. And then he was comparing it to Taycan or something, Porsche Taycan. Well, you pay your money, you take your choice.
And so the lights certainly aren't worth 30k more. I mean, I had an option I'd like to fit them, but I mean, but generally they're good. They're good, definitely good enough. And not it's.
They are the best lights I've ever had, but I mean, I'm working my way up to cars and that have cost more than I've ever paid. So. So every car has been an improvement over my lifetime of cars.
And I have to say they're literally an order of magnitude better than the ones on the MG. So it's really noticeable that. But yeah, I mean that's probably the only thing I've found where it hasn't quite lived up to where the iPace was. And I think other things it's surpassed. It's really good on that. I mean, we mentioned the auto hold. That's way better than the iPace's auto hold was. The adapt. I love the adaptive regen. I think that's works so well when you've got it set up properly. I don't tend to use it on one pedal driving, but the adaptive regen works really well. I had to push it up to high regen on that because that's what I'm used to on the iPace. So I kept under braking.
Well, we had that in the Nero as well. That was what I was used to. But I mean, even in iPedal mode, you can set it to levels of regen. So
you got a lot of options.
So many options.
Also like the fact that you can squeeze that left paddle and it will slow down on regen.
If you're not in cruise control, it says not allowed.
Not allowed. Conditions not met. I get that a lot.
That's the old Nero message you used to get when you try to put it in the cruise control. It wasn't an obvious route into cruise control in the Nero. I ended up having to just press the plus button to make it go up when you were moving forward. It would never go straight in. It's the grumpiest thing ever. But
it works. I mean, the adaptive cruise and everything works incredibly well on V6. And actually, I do think that in a lot of ways is better than the iPace one. I like the fact you've got steering control actually independent from cruise, so you can actually have the auto steer on without having it on necessarily in cruise. Which is a restriction on the iPace. It has to be in cruise to actually get it to work. But that's really good. There's lots of really nice things, and the speed and reliability of the infotainment system is just way better. I mean, I know some people don't like the design of the entertainment service system. I quite like it.
I like most of it, but I don't like the inconsistencies. Why is there an image of a bloody Nero on the front screen and not a flipping EV6?
Yeah.
Why can't you change the colour of the reversing 3D camera to the colour of your car.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, there's also some other weird graphic things that shouldn't be in there that just obviously written by different teams at different times, and they're not linked together in a design kind of language. It's getting better.
I mean, there's some of that starting to. I've noticed some improvements over the updates, so maybe that will get better as they go on.
No, there's a screen in there now when you go into settings, and it's got a label against on the graphic of what it's for, and that wasn't in the early version that you got from July. I think it's missing. But every update after that, it's in there, and obviously the February one.
I'll be interested to see what the next one brings.
Fingers crossed.
maybe wireless Android Auto. That'd be good.
Well, even just turning on the bloody Wi-Fi for downloading stuff would make it take a load off their infrastructure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be good.
But it's just never been on this Gen 5 widescreen system.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another disadvantage. They use the old hardware from the E-Nero and the rest of the models, and we're stuck with the same updates that the rest are. So although I don't know whether they download specific versions when you put it in the downloader and it splits off, or it's smart enough to figure out what it's going to do on which car. I just don't know.
I guess it must be, because I mean, you wouldn't have some of the EV stuff on some of the cars. That's
yeah.
So you must be able to do that, work it out. We'll see. We'll see what the next few updates bring. It'll be interesting to see how things progress. Well, Brian, it's been great talking to you live. Really enjoyed this. Take care, Brian. And
nice to meet you.